Next speaker is Sane Shunu Kapgobe Sozo Tsering Palden.
Thank you, Mr. Gatala. Next we have Mr. Tsering Palden, former president of Tibetan Youth Congress, New York and New Jersey. Mr. Tsering Palden.
Năm xong rồi tiếp theo nhưng thằng mình thu chi chủ yếu anh ta nói để cái chuyện khác sẽ đi engine sẽ cho chị anh nhớ sẽ đi ngon giúp private sang mẹ ham mà có đến để sao anh mà để sang mẹ sẽ để vào đi cái gì vào đi nhé mà cái người này khi anh sang mẹ chấp sự bây giờ như bây giờ chấp sự gì nhé mà để American này để chỉ cái middle college 가족 시에 두두지 막 강교교 두두 유유시나 시기 두치. Ladies and gentlemen, as you might be wondering what these burning flames right behind on the stage here, what they represent. So there are 42 of them, and each burning flame represents a Tibetan self-immolated that happened, except for one that happened in just over 1.5 years. So imagine what kind of situation the Tibet is currently going on. Tibet has been totally locked down. I think it's everyone's common sense what kind of condition the Tibetans in Tibet are currently living. With this many self-immolations going on in just within over 1.5 years, just imagine that itself tells a lot of things. And I want to use this occasion to explain why these self-immolations are happening in Tibet. And then at the end I want to make a little analysis of what the wave of the recent self-immolation that's happening in Tibet and several other self-immolation that has happened in other parts of the world, and why there is a difference between that's happening in Tibet and other parts of the world, and why there are such a huge difference in the end result of those two parts of the self-immolation going on in the different parts of the world. So first I have to make sure that my American friends and the international tourists here, that Tibet was an independent country until 1959. The Chinese communist government took over the country forcefully, and since then a lot of things have happened in Tibet. Nothing good, but everything so repressive, unthinkable condition has gone through by the Tibetans in Tibet, and as a result what we see now, what's happening in Tibet, a kind of cultural genocide is happening in Tibet, which has resulted into this frustration or a very proud and dignified kind of revolt that has been happening in Tibet. The monasteries are locked down. Ever since those, if you remember in 2008, right, there was a huge countrywide, the whole nationwide protest in Tibet. And since then, China has restricted almost every work of the society, work of the communities in life. Every part of the Tibetan communities has been affected. The monasteries are highly restricted. The civilians are watched out. And there are surveillance cameras everywhere, even on the street. You can't even talk about anything that is related to Tibetan's identity or Tibetan culture, anything that is uniqueness, that deviates something away from the Chinese mainland propaganda. They are severing the flow of food and even water into the monasteries.
They are restricting the number of monks in the monasteries. And the monks, instead of doing their rituals and instead of allowing them to practice their spiritual life, they are forced to go. They are forced to attend a kind of, what do you call, a propaganda re-education program, where the monks are forced to defy His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And you can imagine His Holiness equates to something like a god to the Tibetan world. And what it is to insult your own god. How could anyone do that? But the monks in Tibet and the Tibetans in Tibet are being forced to do this by the Chinese Communist government. So monastic lives are totally effective, totally restricted. Coming to the schools, even schools are not spared. Except for the government-run schools. Any civilian-run school, who are schools that are funded by the local Tibetan people, are being closed now. Because these schools teach the Tibetan kids about the Tibetan language and Tibetan culture, which in the eyes of communist government is a big threat to them. And why is threat to them? As I told you, Tibet was an independent country and China forcefully took over. They don't want to see Tibetan culture flourishing. They knew that Tibetans will keep this movement and fight for their country back. They want to make sure that this doesn't happen. That's why all these repressions are going on in Tibet. Think about the intellectual communities. The writers are being arrested. The singers who sing they sing in Tibetan, who puts lyrics something related to the Tibetan movement. These singers are being arrested and detained. So such is the life in Tibet. And the Chinese Communist government, right? To them, everything is fine in Tibet. But the fact is, these are the result. And with this, now we can imagine, right? Is everything fine in Tibet? To Chinese government, right? I think they still very strongly believe what Mao Zedong once said. A lie repeated 100 times makes it the truth, right? I think they really believe in this. They keep telling lies to the world. They mispropagate. Sometimes their own propaganda is contrasting. For example, let me say, they say Tibet was a part of China for immemorial. Since the beginning of time, they are saying Tibet is a part of China. If we are to buy this statement, at times they say they liberated Tibet. So if it is a part of China, why they say they liberated Tibet from some kind of feudal society until what they call as Dalai clique? So it's very contrasting, even their own statement. So we have to really analyze. If you analyze, you will get the truth. Whether Tibetans are saying the fact or the Chinese are saying the fact. And based on that, then you can decide whether to support the Chinese Communist government or the Tibetan people who are fighting very peacefully, non-violently. Imagine these 42 Tibetans have sacrificed their life. That means they have determined to give up their life. And what can you expect, right? What other things are they capable of not doing? Just imagine if you give up your life, right? What you are scared of now? What is left then? But not even a single incident of stabbing, hostage, kidnapping, bombing Had that happened in Tibet? It did not. That shows Tibetan movement is clearly based on a non-violent movement led by the Dalai Lama. But if the world doesn't listen, particularly if China doesn't listen, don't you think this movement will take a different form? It's a natural, right? If things doesn't work, it's bound to try another way. So I think it's a very critical moment that the world knows about the Tibetan movement, knows about how we are leading this struggle, and lend your support. Tell your own government, it's time that my government stands for the Tibetan people. This is the time. Before I don't know what may happen, right? Because these young Tibetans who never met the Dalai Lama, who never got a day's worth, not even an hour's teaching. So these Tibetans right now, they are very peaceful. But a time may soon change. So it's really time. So I ask everyone here, please lend us your support. Now to make some analysis, right? In Tunisia, we all know, we all heard about the Arab Spring. Just one street vendor, he self-immolated. But that was strong enough to bring the world support and revolutionize, to bring revolution in as many as 15 countries. But here, we the Tibetans, as many as 42 self-immolation in just within 1.5 years. But did any government in the world lend a solid, concrete support behind us? No one. No one. What does this mean? This means world has to be on alert now. Are we paying more attention to the economical needs? Or we still need to work on to preserve the basic human values, the basic moral, the basic democratic values that we are trying to teach our own kids. So if we lose these morals, these moral values, right, what kind of world you can imagine in future? Is it because of Chinese economy power, just because that the country depends on their trade, that we have to give up, we have to compromise on the basic human values? I don't think so. These are the real core values of the existence of the humanitarian. So we are at a risk of losing our own humanity if we yield to our own government's policy of compromising just for our economical needs. This is not good. So I request all of you once again to please stand by the Tibetan people and tell your own government it's really a time that we give them the support. And one more thing, see, if we try to analyze the thing that happened in the Arab world and that's happening in Tibet, why this Tibetan self-immolation is not widespreading? We say the Arab world, those are autocratic, very restricted place, right? But they, just by single self-immolation, they were able to bring success. They were able to revolutionize. They were able to change the whole government. They were able to bring those autocratic government. But things we are not able to do in Tibet even after these many self-immolations. That is because these Chinese communist regimes are so repressive. And they are monitoring every movement in Tibet. They are not even allowing the tourists to go into Tibet because they are scared of the information leaking out. Why the Facebook is banned? Why all those very popular social media networks are banned in China and in Tibet? Because the government is scared of. So based on all these, I think it's very timely that everybody helps the Tibetan cause. Thank you very much.
President Tsering Palden